Hello and welcome to In the Art Scene podcast, a show that unites creatives from all over the world in sharing inspiration, life stories, business knowledge, and love for art. This show is a part of the San Diego Art Directory, a nonprofit organization serving as an informational hub for all things arts and culture in San Diego County, founded by yours truly. I'm Galina Marquez, and I invite you to explore a new angle of the multifaceted world of arts and creativity. As always, the show notes will be on our website, intheartscene.com. And now let's get to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to In the Art Scene podcast. And before I introduce my guest today, I just want to take a very quick minute to thank every one of you for listening and supporting the show. If it wasn't for you, I probably would have quit a long time ago, but it is just amazing and heartwarming to know how this little but mighty community has grown, and all the comments that I'm getting, and knowing that you are out there and listening is just, it keeps blowing my mind. And I really appreciate you being patient with me while I was uploading sort of sporadically while working hard on getting San Diego Art Directory up and running. And I will just continue doing this, I promise, because I love it and I love you, all of you guys. That said, it would really help the show if you leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe. And if you share it with someone who you think will enjoy it just as much as you do, that will be a huge help for the show. Thank you so much again. And speaking of the up and running projects, my today's guest today, Blanca Bergman. Do I need to use your full last name? Blanca Bergman is an amazing creative person here in San Diego. As I'm digging deeper in the San Diego art community, I just realized that it's endless. I don't even have to search anywhere beside my backyard. Blanca is not only a singer, a curator, she is also a founder and like a hands and a face and the voice of a few really wonderful, supportive arts organizations here in San Diego. And that's what we are going to talk about today. So Blanca, welcome to the show, and please introduce yourself, because I know that I was rambling and I didn't probably do a good job doing this.
No, you did great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to all of you listening. I'm Blanca Bergman, founder of Mental Wellness for Artists, Art Unites, and co-founder of PsychEd Gallery. I'm a business consultant, public speaker, and also a mental health advocate.
And this is how Blanca and I kind of got acquainted, because as you may know, I'm also a huge mental wellness advocate. And I just wanted, so we had a conversation a few weeks ago about how this whole thing started, and I do really want you to share that story with everyone who's listening to it. But can you start from the beginning? How did your journey begin? You got a BFA, right?
I'm sorry?
You got a fine art degree, is that correct?
No, I don't. I have a
No.
master's degree in business.
Okay.
I have a master's in business and an undergrad, a BA in cognitive science from UC Irvine. So that was my introduction to psychology, really, is experimental psychology and learning about memory and language acquisition and perception, and very fascinating topics, and the biology of our psychology. All of that still interests me today, and I do continuous research in the areas of best practices and popular treatments for things like anxiety and depression, latest terminology and treatments for ADHD, and also post-traumatic stress disorder and other disorders. So that's my background there with respect to psychology. Some of the artists I work with have their masters in fine arts. I personally don't, and I'm always in awe of you and all my friends out there who produce art in any discipline.
Well, how did you get into the art world then? Because you made such a name for yourself in San Diego County for everything you do for the art community.
Thank you. That's very kind. I've been a musician since about the early 2000s, since about 2001 or so. And that experience led me to travel through the United States multiple times to Canada, Japan, and Mexico. It was a beautiful and humbling and enriching experience, all of the touring. Visual arts was not really in my radar back then. I appreciated visual arts and other forms of art, but I was very immersed in the music community here in San Diego. What happened is that in 2016, right around the presidential election, I decided to host an event in 2017 titled Art Unites because I saw significant division in our country and even locally among some of my friends, which saddened me because we have our artistry in common, our passion for the arts. I created that event to bring us together, regardless of our politics and other differences, and also to donate the proceeds to a local music program for children. I achieved both, and what I learned that night is that there is a high demand for interdisciplinary art events here in San Diego. And I decided to leave the corporate world, start a for-profit model through Art Unites, and continue hosting interdisciplinary art events. That changed when the pandemic happened in 2020. When that started, I decided to halt any of our events for the public safety. But during that time, I quickly developed many community partnerships with local businesses, nonprofit organizations within and outside of the arts, and movers and shakers, individuals. So I leveraged that in 2021 by just posing the question, who out there would like to join me in leveraging our networks and our influence for good, for disseminating mental health information? Because I saw tips here and there and resources here and there, but I thought it would be more impactful if we joined together and applied strategic marketing to building buzz around mental health conversations. So that's how we formed. It was with the help and support and love of local arts leaders and other people who share my passion for mental health awareness. And then it expanded to being more than this online Instagram-based resource that shared local resources and events and opportunities. It grew to us bringing booths or setting up booths at festivals, at concerts, at museums, galleries, and alternative art spaces with our pamphlets full of helpful mental health information and places where people could call and investigate free and low-cost resources, but also including free clothing, for example, for some of our transgender friends, including nutritious foods whenever I receive donations of that kind, or art supplies. We customize based on our audience for any given event, which I'm very proud of. And it also led to me visiting places like the Old Globe Theater and Bread and Salt and other beautiful spaces to talk about mental health topics such as self-care or my own journey with my mental illness and various disorders, and ways that I learned to reduce the frequency, intensity, and duration of my own symptoms. So I've been able to do all of that, not by myself, but with the support of my family and local arts leaders.
Yeah, amazing. And it's actually, it's so telling that you mentioned that all of that started back in 2016, because I remember I was just barely getting into like the life of San Diego. I moved to San Diego at the end of 2015, so the entire 2016 was just a huge nightmare. And then, past that, we all know what happened. And it is just amazing to me that despite all the tragedies, pandemics, divisive voices, misinformation, artists are the ones who are getting together and saying, heck it, let's just make the world a little better. Let's just make it a little better than we found it, right? So yeah, it's amazing. So you are still doing the events for the Art Unites?
Yes, recently I presented artwork by two local musicians, which is something I very much enjoy doing as a fellow musician. And this was for an underground music venue. And so there was music, there was art, there was networking. It was really neat. And I am especially excited about alternative art spaces. There's just more freedom, more flexibility. The conversations to me seem more genuine and down to earth. And I think people feel safe asking me questions about art when it's an alternative art space versus a
Mhm.
gallery, somewhere more formal. But I'm thankful for anywhere that I can feature local artists.
So when you say local artists, you already mentioned visual arts and music. Do you work with other types of artists?
Yes, I do. So I've worked with literary artists, dance artists, music artists, visual artists, people who specialize in sculpture or photography, different forms of visual art, and even comedy art. I should mention that one of
Yes, I
my
remember. Yeah.
exhibitions, one of my exhibitions featured three visual artists with humor-based art for that specific exhibition. And I also featured three established comedy artists. I thought both complemented each other well. I was able to explain to the audience the background of some of the artworks presented, followed by an open mic to anyone brave enough to try comedy art. And that night concluded with the established comedy artists doing their bits
Hmm.
and a Q&A following that, which was very eye-opening for me. They make it look so simple. It's not. And
Like any art, right?
they debriefed us on some of the terminology that is used within their community and their preparations. It's very admirable with comedy artistry.
Yeah. 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 A lot of artists are making it seem like it's easy. And probably mostly because we enjoy what we do, right? So it looks like there's no effort in it. Although pretty much if you talk to any artist of any discipline, it's a lot of work and a lot of patience in different ways and a lot of mental effort as well, because sometimes there's like a bunch of emotions brewing that need to be expressed, or sometimes there's very careful, consideration of what you put on your art piece, whether it's a piece of literature or a painting or a comedy routine, right? So, so being in a corporate world, in business, and also, having a background with the cognitive research, and how did you find yourself being such a um, thoughtful and exquisite curator, because I don't even know if I'm finding the right words for this, because it really does feel to me like you've been doing this, I don't know, for years and years and years, and you have background in like a museum work, and you know what speaks to people, or what kind of shakes the fabric of society. But you do have a knack for it, and I just wanted to hear your perspective on how you found yourself in this role, and how does it make you feel?
Mhm. Thank you. Well, I'll start with your last question. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel privileged. To me, when I am able to simply view someone's art, that is a privilege to me as a viewer, not just separate from the curation. I see it as something very special and precious, not to be taken for granted. And as far as curating, I would say if I had to describe myself in one word, it would be strategic. And I'll give you an example. I have an exhibition coming up September 14th at Expressive Arts, which I'm very thankful to have you be a part of.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm excited. And the call for artists that I shared with our community, I shared it because I always like to see what is out there that I am not aware of, that I haven't already seen. And I left the description somewhat vague, but that was strategic. Almost everything I do is strategic, and always thinking about what is the benefit to everyone involved, what is the benefit to our community, and also, of course, just on a practical level, is this feasible for me? Is this sustainable? I have to think about that as well. But going back to strategy, I left it purposely somewhat vague because with the research that I've done and my past education, I know that simply looking at art offers mental health benefits both to the creator and to the admirer. There are mental health benefits. So I didn't want to get caught up in theme. The idea is to bring some of my favorite artists together in one room and collectively send a message that it's okay to talk about mental health, and to also talk about some of the mental health benefits of the arts, not only visual art, but other arts as well. And to also send a message that there are resources available and we can point you to some of those quality resources, and that it's a wonderful thing to do something about it, to do something about the stigma, to do something about the way we're talking about mental health. Sometimes we use hurtful terminology, sometimes we dismiss or downplay people's symptoms or feelings, and we can change that, but it takes some amount of education and it takes effort. It takes someone deciding to come to an exhibition like this titled Light and Darkness to want to better ourselves and support those around us whom we love.
Yeah, it is so clear how passionate you're about this. Yeah. So I personally am really glad that with all your background, you found yourself where you are right now, uh, organizing, curating those events, and supporting the local artists in San Diego. So my next question is, why is that specifically your initiative called Mental Wellness for Artists?
Mhm.
Because we know, and being a mental wellness advocate myself, I cannot agree with you more that, art is the ultimate uh, free, practically way of bettering yourself and helping others, whether by engaging or just letting people, participate by viewing or listening or reading. It does invoke a lot of internal work, whether you want it or not, right? Uh, but mental wellness is something that affects everybody, and I would personally argue, being an artist and also having an education in psychology, artists are probably more sensitive to what's happening within them, or a little bit more aware of their own mental state, or at least, having more tools to express it, whether other people who don't consider themselves artists or creatives, or don't happen to have any creative outlet, they are, might not necessarily have access to those things, or being so um, acutely aware of their own um, feelings, right? So why is it important for you to bring awareness and resources for the mental wellness, specifically in the art community?
Mhm. It's important to me because I see the need, I hear the need, I feel the need in our community. Artists tell me about some of their hardships and about some of their mental disorders, whether they're diagnosed or not. Um, and because I'm an artist too, I'm especially interested in supporting this community that I'm a part of. I care about helping the San Diego community at large. I do want to say that I love San Diego County. I, I mentioned privilege earlier. It is a privilege to live here. And whatever I can do to support artists in empowering themselves, learning the tools that are accessible within the internal resources that we have, that is one thing I'm especially excited about, is to share everything I've learned, everything I know about the tools that are within before we even consider psychotherapy or medications or other treatments. We have to do a little bit of internal work as well and understand where we are and what we have at our disposal, and supplement that if needed with other modalities. That's perfectly okay. But it's important that we start by knowing ourselves and understanding what our challenges are, and understanding what our environment is. Is there anything in our environment right now that is hampering our growth? Or is there anything in our environment that is supporting our growth? To have an honest assessment with ourselves about these things can offer tremendous benefits. And I want to be a support in sharing this information because I don't think it's published enough. I don't think it's spoken about enough. I think we talk frequently about external resources.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And even stigma has decreased significantly from the time I was a child. I'm 50 years old now, and things have changed significantly, and I love it. But there's so much more that needs to be added to the conversation. And one of those things is internal resources.
Yeah. Can you give a few examples of such internal resources?
Yes, internal resources. So, for example, we can stop in the middle of our tracks when we feel anxious and ask ourselves, what is happening? Why might I be feeling this way? What is my body currently experiencing? Am I feeling pain in my chest? Am I feeling a headache? Am I feeling discomfort in my stomach? So being acutely aware of our physical symptoms is very important. Let me mention that oftentimes people with depression uh, may not be thinking of these things. The frontal lobe is thinking about decision making and emotions. It's our emotion center, and verbal expression. And sometimes, if we have depression, we're very caught up in our stories, oftentimes negative stories. but the back of our brain isn't being activated, and we're not thinking about how we're feeling physically. But that's one thing that we can do right now, is to think about, how do I feel physically? What's happening? But look at it not from a standpoint of judgment, but from a place of compassion and curiosity. And that's something I could not do growing up as a child before I knew the word anxiety. I thought I was dying. And in fact, I was having panic attacks. But now that I have tools and understand what's happening in my biology, then I'm able to stop, literally take a deep breath, assess what my body is doing, have curiosity and compassion about it, and know that it will subside in time. And it's difficult to describe, but I can tell you that that's helped me those few times that I've experienced anxiety in the recent years. Before that, I experienced anxiety frequently, but I discovered about 5 different ways to improve my own symptoms so I don't experience anxiety as often. But when it happens, there's often an environmental trigger, is what
Mhm.
I've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one example, is just being conscientious of what our body is feeling. The other is, and I know this is popular right now, and I hope that it's something that is more widely used, but that's mindfulness. And that is related to what I just mentioned. Just being mindful of the sounds around us, the people around us, their faces, their expressions, what they're saying, being attentive, mindful listeners, being mindful of our actions could mean the difference between me locking my door 5 times before I go somewhere, or only checking it once, or not no times.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, both personally and from learning about it back in university and on my own. And I think the last time we spoke about those things, we were discussing the book. Um, and everybody, if you are listening right now and you are curious about what is this you can find in your body and how this whole thing works, there is a wonderful book by a Dutch American psychiatrist, Bissell van der Kolk, and it's called "The Body Keeps the Score," and it describes at length perfectly what Blanca is talking about how those things, the triggers and symptoms are manifesting themselves in our body, and how to get aware of them, and what to do about them, because there are different ways we can do it, even if we're not capable, or the therapy is not accessible to us, because therapy, let's face it, it's freaking expensive. It is freaking expensive. That said, the book is actually, you can get it for free on the Hoopla, or at any public library. It's available. So if you are interested, then yeah, we would highly recommend it. I hope you will highly recommend it to Blanca.
Yes, thank you for sharing this new resource
Yeah.
with me. And speaking of resources, there are 2 resources that come to mind that are lower cost,
Hmm.
and that's professional mental health services provided by NAMI
Hmm.
San Diego County, and also urban restoration counseling. So I
Hmm.
recommend checking those 2 out. But another internal resource came to mind, if I may share it.
Of course.
There is one concept that I came up with a few years ago called PVVMG: purpose, values, vision, mission, and goals. And I've researched each of these topics carefully and decided that all of them are important to better understanding ourselves and our direction in life. And to keep it brief, taking time alone with ourselves to assess, what are what is my purpose? What are my values? What is my life vision, which is longer term, my mission, which is shorter term, and my goals. And hopefully, most of you know what SMART goals are. Look those up if you
Mhm.
don't. So when we do that for ourselves, which yes, it may be a multi-hour investment, but it's an investment worthwhile. And knowing these things can reduce symptoms of anxiety and stress and depression because now we have a compass, we have a sense of direction, we have purpose in life, and we're going to waste less time on activities that only drain our energy and personal resources. And instead, we'll invest it in people and events and things and activities that help us to grow.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like it's one of the business corporate kind of topics because my husband is doing something like that. He's a master of evaluating branding and culture within the company, and that's practically what like the exercises that they're going through, identifying the mission, the vision, the values, and the goals, and all of that stuff. So it's kind of interesting because while you were talking, I got like the thought popped in my head that for us, for artists, being technically entrepreneurs,
Yes,
this is not only beneficial on the personal level for our own mental wellness, but it is also very helpful for our art businesses and our practices to grow and um, thrive, right? Flourish. So yeah, I think this is amazing. So I know that you are also a consultant and I know that you are working with artists. Is that something that you offer as a service?
yes. Um, Let me back up for a second
Okay.
because you reminded me that the PVVMG, the purpose, values, vision, mission, and goals, yes, it does offer mental health benefits, but there are also economic benefits. We're less likely to spend our monies in areas that don't serve our goals. So I should mention that. And as far as so the groups that I consult on the business side are artists, are retailers, are people in agriculture, specifically plants. My family owns a nursery that specializes in rare palms, cycads, and tropical plants, which, by the way, are also great for mental health. In some countries, plants are prescribed for improving mental health. So, yes, I consult in those areas on topics ranging from business and marketing plans and also sales plans to business processes and standard operating procedures. Again, all of this for small businesses. I worked in large corporations. I've worked with small businesses, and yes, there is some overlap to an extent, but there is also um, there are differences between the large companies and their regulations and small businesses. And I learned that quickly. My very first year of leading Art Unites, I brought in some of the corporate practices like setting up an org chart and having
Hmm.
multiple levels of management, and that was silly. It was not necessary, and I'm thankful that I tried it and learned that that was not really necessary or the most efficient. But there are some corporate practices that lend themselves well as a small business owner. And for example, I watch what large retailers do in terms of their marketing, and where feasible, I apply it to my own small business marketing.
Yeah. Well, we will make sure to put the information about how to reach out to you for if anyone is interested in the services, because I know a lot of the artists who are listening to this show are running their own small business, whether they're selling their art through the retailers or at the art fairs, or I hope that we have some musicians also listening to us. I'm trying to bring more musicians to the show. So maybe next time we can interview you in your band on specifically the music that you do, because
Sure.
yeah, because I don't think I've had that many musicians on the show yet. So so yeah, we will that said, let's go scratch that. That said, go to in the art scene, intheartscene.com, find this episode's show notes, and there will be all the information about Blanca, about her business, her contact information, and how you can get in touch in case you're interested in getting some consulting with her. So, I also wanted to ask you, and you feel free to say no if you don't feel comfortable, but I know we talked about it before, and it seems like you are okay with sharing your story. You mentioned several times that you are dealing, or you have been in the past more severely experiencing symptoms of your own mental issues, and so would you be open to share a little bit of that with our listeners?
About my own symptoms?
About, yeah, about your struggles with mental health, and you know, how that informs what you do as well.
Sure. As a child, I experienced several traumas. And as a child, I also experienced anxiety and panic attacks, although I didn't know at the time. I didn't have a name for what I was experiencing. And mental health wasn't something that was discussed in my immediate or extended family at the time. Then I went to UC Irvine and studied cognitive science. I read the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders from cover to cover. And even with that knowledge, I was in denial that any of the disorders applied to me. It's painful for some people like me early on to admit that any of those disorders had anything to do with me. But as I matured and did deeper dives into some of those disorders and saw various mental health professionals, which was a requirement at the time at UC Irvine, I learned that I had several disorders. Generalized anxiety disorder being one, post-traumatic stress disorder, although with the knowledge I have now, I would say it was complex. Post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and multiple phobias, including the fear of heights, of small spaces with even just a few people. I experience that still now in my own kitchen. And I was obsessed with neatness. I would rather be late to class sometimes than leave with a room that was even mildly disorganized and things were an inch apart or a particular set up a particular way, and it had to be that way or else I couldn't function. My hangers an inch apart and things that you see on TV or movies, and that was me. That was my real life. And I could say now that because I know these things about myself, because I understand and accept that I have several disorders, I feel deeper compassion for people that have those or any other disorders that I read about. I understand that it causes disruption in relationships, in our sleep, in our food choices, in our careers, and it can be a very lonely place. And I'm here to say to other people, and I know that this is a popular saying, but you are not alone. You're not. And I'm certainly here for people who felt as alone as I did in my 20s and 30s and even early 40s, feeling that I was different and didn't belong in any group. But one day in my early 40s, I had this aha moment when I realized I'm not much different than other people and not much different from other adults with children and the concerns about bills and housing and all those other concerns that adults have. And it was liberating. I can tell you, I felt liberated and happy and amused, even because all those years of thinking and feeling that I was alone, I was incorrect. I was not alone. And it all stemmed from my perception, my negative perception, which I don't hold anymore.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And I just wanted to make a point that like in my personal view, mental health is just a part of our overall health. And if, once in a while you are having an upset stomach or a hurt tooth or something like that, and you are taking measures to take care of that, so why would you not consider that you're having some issues, even if it's not chronic? We're all experiencing, because we're human beings, we're alive, we have emotions, even if sometimes we are in denial about something. But when things are falling out of your hands, just realizing that something is not right and the resources are out there. I shared with you my story with like going through the years of the therapy and ending up going through the EMDR to treat the post-traumatic symptoms of something that I don't even have memories of because it happened very early on in my childhood. And by the way, I'm feeling like as years go by, I feel more and more open talking about those things. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about my dirty laundry, leave a comment somewhere and we'll talk about that. Maybe I'll make a bonus episode about it. But even that, with all things considered, I was a functional, a well-performing, well-behaved human being, anything that anyone can quote unquote call normal, right? Which is where's the extent of normal, that's a totally different question. Right, but those things happen to us because we're human beings and we don't live isolated. We live in society and things happen. Sometimes things happen outside of our abilities to influence them or control them, right? But they do affect us. And things like um, postpartum depression for 11 months after having my son, I thought, well, phew, I didn't catch that one. And then on the 11th month, it hit me. And it hit me hard. And I have been on the serotonin reinhibitors for a whole year now. And it's okay because sometimes things hit you hard enough that you do need that extra help just to keep you up and running so you can, at least take a little breather and then, focus on your internal resources. So, and I was opposed to medication for years and years up until now. And only when I realized that I just cannot handle it on my own, and I tried, I really tried. I so yeah, sometimes just mindfulness practices, breathing exercises, yoga, meditation is a great way to go to just help you through your day-to-day life filled with normal, well, again, quote unquote, normal anxieties, right? And sometimes you just need something extra, and this is why those resources exist. So I do think that stigma that is still flaring around mental wellness, and I refuse to say mental disorders because we are so complex. Mental wellness is something that we all need to be striving for, I believe. So the stigma might as well just apply to every single person on earth, because we're all experiencing those things either temporarily or constantly and in a different level of severity. And we just need to look at this as the other parts of our health that we are constantly taking care of. So if you don't stop brushing your teeth because you feel that your gum health is important, so please don't just limit yourself to one visit to a therapist if you decide that this is something you want to do, because this is not a one and done thing. It's a process, it's work, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
It is. I completely agree. It's a crucial investment in
Yes.
ourselves.
Yeah. And not only in ourselves, because by taking care of this for ourselves, we are reflecting it back to our immediate relationships, and then as circles in the water, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So I've been saying all along that if we just put, like, if the government just puts a huge focus on mental health and culture, we
Mhm.
will heal the planet. Seriously, we will stop global warming. We will be happy, we will be productive, and we will love each other. So,
Well, I hope that happens.
yeah, I do too. I do too. One step at a time and one Blanca at a time. And
Oh no.
thank you for everything that you are doing,
Yeah.
specifically in that field, and bringing awareness to people and resources to people as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I should say that I learn from everyone as well. Everyone I meet, everyone I talk to, every artist I work with. And that's important to me. Continuous learning is one of my highest values.
So, and I agree with that too. I bet, like, the podcast has been the perfect example of that, actually. So again, kudos to everyone who has been on my show. You enriched my life in the ways that you have no idea. Um, uh, so mental wellness for artists has been around for how long?
Late 2021 is when we formed.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So it's been almost 3 years,
Mhm.
and it is still kind of it's just an initiative of enthusiastic people. Are you planning on making it an official organization anytime soon?
That's a great question. Not anytime soon. So far, we've been very fortunate to partner with organizations like NAMI San Diego, that's National Alliance on Mental Illness. And there are other organizations that I'm very proud to be a partner with, like Olivewood Gardens. And someone might think, well, what does nutrition or environment have to do with mental health? But we launched a campaign last year called Mental Wellness for Artists High Five campaign, during which time we promoted mental health, of course. We promoted education, nutrition, physical fitness, and financial literacy, because in my mind, these are areas that I was deficient in as a young person, deficient in my knowledge in these areas. And I think these are areas that impact our mental health, our mental wellness, which, by the way, are not the same thing. Mental health, for those of you listening, relates to, for example, disorders, the DSM, and mental wellness. And all of this is in our Instagram account, by the way, if you want to read about it a little bit more. Mental wellness, now we're talking about things like loneliness and yoga and mindfulness. And not to say there's never any overlap, but these are two different camps. And I've learned that through mental wellness for artists. I have friends who are experts in, for example, yoga and other alternatives to psychotherapy. On the mental health side, I have friends who are psychotherapists, licensed marriage and family therapists, for example. So they are two worlds, and sometimes there's overlap. And I do what I can to bring these two communities together at Mental Wellness for Artists resource fairs. And by the way, we have one coming up October 12th at Expressive Arts at 32nd and Thorn, where we'll be featuring our community partners like NAMI San Diego. We will have, of course, a visual art exhibition. We will have light refreshments, music. We will have a workshop related to the literary arts and our mental health. It's going to be very dynamic, very interesting, very different from probably most community resource fairs you've seen. Next year, we're going to have our resource fair at a very special place in Balboa Park, but I'm not going to announce it yet. I just got the green light this week, so I can't wait for that. It's a
Exciting.
museum, and that's all I'm going to say.
That's exciting. Oh my God, that's exciting. Okay.
So we're constantly doing, growing, learning, and going back to your question, I don't see the need to transform to a nonprofit at this time. Who knows? Maybe that will change in the future. I know that there are definitely pros to that, but for now, we're pretty happy with where we are and what we've achieved with a modest budget.
Awesome. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for educating me on mental health versus mental wellness because I didn't know. I didn't know about that. And second, so you have an Instagram account, which is a very active account, and we will post it in the show notes. But also, you guys, if you want to stay, if you are in San Diego or planning to visit San Diego and planning to get in touch with Blanca and or visit those events, sign up on SanDiegoArtDirectory.com for the newsletters on a weekly basis. We will be announcing everything that Blanca is doing. Mental Wellness for Artists now has its own category on the platform. It's called Mental Wellness for Artists, and Blanca, with the help of her community partners or pretty much anyone who wants to share the resources that are available, will be posting on the platform, so you can access it that way. So yeah, so sign up and be informed on the exhibition and the community resource event that Blanca is putting together in October.
Thank you so much.
I did my elevator speech. So
Thank
we are at the top of the hour, and before I say goodbye, I just wanted to give you a room and a space to share or plug whatever you want to plug, where people can find you. Again, mind that everything is going to be put on the show notes as well, but if you have something else to promote or encourage people or give online resources where they can go and see what you are doing and stay in touch, just blog away.
Sure, thank you. This is a little bit off topic for mental health, but I think bearing these tips that I'm about to give in mind can somehow indirectly lead to positive well-being and better choices. So I've interviewed many gallerists and museum executive directors, nonprofit executive directors informally, and asked, what do you look for in bringing on an artist to collaborate with your organization? Doesn't matter the discipline. And these are the top three things that have surfaced again and again. And that is professionalism. How are we communicating? How are we dressing to the meetings? Are we showing up on time? Are we delivering on time? And is our deliverables high quality? So that's professionalism. The other was follow through. So making sure that we keep our word, that is essential, regardless of the business or industry that we're in. And thirdly, being easygoing. I mean, this is all simple, but it must be as difficult as that because from what I learned, these are not easy things to find in candidates, prospective employees, and collaborators. So again, is being professional, following through on our word, and being easy to get along with. That means being flexible, being good listeners, attentive to the needs of the organization that we're working with. And I would say that applies to even people like me who are musicians. One thing is what I enjoy, the music I enjoy, the way I enjoy dressing, all of that, that's me, that's self-focused. What about my audience? So being conscientious of our audience can produce economic and mental health benefits, because now we're developing rapport, and that leads to trust, and it ultimately leads to sales. And of course, if we're selling whatever it is that we're offering, then we're in a better place, better shape to be able to stay in San Diego County. And it's great for our mental health.
Awesome. Thank you for the words of wisdom. I think that applies to anyone beyond San Diego as well.
Thank you.
I believe it's universal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so happy we did it. And I gotta have you back with your band talking about your music, because you are doing something that is off the beaten path. And I'm really, really excited. And if you want to share the name of your band and a link to where people can find your gigs or your concerts, or if you have a website, we will also post it in the show notes. You can say it right now if you want.
Poise in the Darkness. Poise in the Darkness on Instagram. We have a show this Sunday at the Tower Bar. We go on at about 8. We're supporting touring acts. Poised in the Darkness is based on a quote by Buzz Aldrin when he was admiring our planet Earth from the moon and describing it as just beautiful and in the sea of tranquility, poised in the darkness.
Oh my God, this is so exciting. I so have to have you back and talk about this, that's for sure. Okay, that's a date. All right, guys, thank you so much again for listening. Please leave a review if you like this. If you have any comments about what we were talking about today, because I think this topic is really universal and it affects everybody. Leave the comments in Spotify or on the Instagram post when we post the announcement of this episode. Reach out through the website in the artscene.com. There's a box, the form that you can just send messages to. I read them all, and if they relate to my guests, I always share it with my guests. So yeah, your engagement, your support is really valuable. Thank you, Blanca, again for everything you're doing. Thank you for your time. This is not goodbye. We're going to be working together for the greater good of San Diego community, and we're gonna be meeting on the show again in the future. We'll see you again in the art scene.
Thank you so much, and lots of love to you, your family, and your community.
Thanks for listening to this episode of In the Art Scene. Show us some love by sharing it with your friends and giving it a raving 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. By doing this, you're supporting my nonprofit organization called San Diego Art Directory on its mission to make San Diego a new cultural destination. To learn more, visit sandiegoartdirectory.com and intheartscene.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Have an inspiring day. I will see you next time in the art scene.